So once they have this is Sabrina from A Space to Create, and this is for our found poetry lesson. Once they have their page glued down to the watercolor, the one piece that's extremely important is that they find the core or central theme of their poem. Quite often I'm asked if the word has to be in the poem, and actually it doesn't. As long as that key word actually defines that central theme of the poem for the student, then that's fine. The other thing is that the artwork needs to cover every single part of the page and the paper except for the words of the poem. This poem is one that I created, and the main word is the central theme that I felt was in this poem was flow, and therefore that's why I created the waves, because the artwork should tie into the central theme. And the poem reads, "Now I hear the night, sensing the power on a still moonlit moment, and again there are echoes of past and future, changes in the flow of time, seeking a foothold, tangible, purposeful, rising." So when you guys create your art, there are a couple different mediums that you can use, and that's what I wanted to cover in a little more detail. One is watercolor pencil, which is what was used on this. There's also just regular colored pencil, and you can also use marker. Marker would be probably my last choice, my first choice being watercolor pencil or colored pencil. You can also use acrylic paint if you have that available. Now when you're using watercolor pencil, if they've never used watercolor pencil before, one of the things that I have them do is find reference for their art so that they're not drawing symbols, but I have them kind of sketch out whatever their artwork is going to be. So say this is going to be a rose or a flower, abstract. And I'm just doing this quickly so you can kind of see. Whatever that is, you also need to create a background for it, okay? So if you do it in pencil first, you can trace over it with Sharpie so that you can see it. Remember to plan a place for your central theme or your core idea word. And say so I see this is one of my words that is in my poem, so I want to make sure that I don't go through that. So I'm going to go through and just circle or square off carefully the words of my poem. You can kind of cheat towards the other words so that you don't lose any of the words of your poem. Take your time and make sure you're doing a good job on this part so that we can actually read your hard work when it's done. Okay, so now I wanted to just show you what it looks like to use these watercolor pencils. You can actually use these by coloring first, and this is the way I would recommend doing it for these found poems. So color whatever color you want your artwork to be first. And then you're going to take a wet brush and you'll apply it, and it's going to turn to paint. Okay, now you can create value or lighter or darker sections by using some of the color that you've drawn on. I would probably continue the darker around this circle, and then since we need to make sure we're covering the whole page, maybe I'm going to do an abstract kind of windy looking background. To cover the rest of the page. This isn't as detailed as I would like for you to do, or as detailed as many of my students do, but I'm just trying to quickly show you ways that you can fill the background quickly, and it really does make a difference in the final art when you go ahead and take your time and do a good background and cover every single word except for the words of your poem, okay? So that's an example. When you do come up with the core theme, and I think this one is possession, what you want to do is you want to find a font or a letter form on your computer. Maybe your teacher can print out some examples for you. Otherwise, you're going to end up looking like bubble letters instead of, or even like your own handwriting. So definitely take your time and find a font. And what that looks like when you're hand drawing a font, say that I'm using, I don't have one here, but say I'm using a font that looks similar to where it says Sharpie. The way you hand draw it is take your pencil and you start by drawing the inner part of it, almost like a skeletal letter. So if you can imagine your skeleton, your skin's over the skeleton. This is the inside part of the letter form. And then you can see how the H is thicker. So it's actually, it comes more like this, and then comes over and down. You can go ahead and put your word on here in Sharpie if you want, since we're using watercolor pencil. And then you'll probably have to go back over it after you do all of your art, because the last thing you want is for your keyword to be standing out there on white all by itself. You want it to be somehow integrated into your artwork, okay? So that's basically how you do a hand-drawn letter form, okay? And that's about it. Thank you.